Have you ever considered how real estate impacts the wealth gap between generations in the U.S.? This video will delve into the complex relationship between housing, financial stability, and the inheritance of economic advantage or disadvantage. We will explore how homeownership, or the lack thereof, acts as a pivotal force in shaping the financial landscapes across different age groups. Understanding this mechanism is crucial for informed financial literacy. This topic is highly relevant for you, especially if you are navigating personal finance decisions considering home ownership, or simply wish to comprehend broader economic trends affecting society. The decisions made regarding housing today can have long-lasting repercussions, influencing not just individual net worth, but also the collective financial health of future generations. It's a foundational aspect of economic justice. We will precisely define the generational wealth gap and then meticulously examine the specific ways housing policies, market dynamics, and access to capital have contributed to its expansion. You will gain a clear understanding of the systemic factors at play, moving beyond anecdotal observations to a data-driven perspective. Our aim is to provide clarity, not hyperbole, about this significant economic issue. As a dedicated financial analyst with years of experience studying market trends and their societal impacts, my goal is to distill complex financial concepts into understandable insights. I have extensively researched the historical and contemporary data on housing economics and intergenerational wealth transfer, offering a perspective grounded in verifiable facts and expert analysis. To truly grasp the concept of housing as a hidden tax on certain generations, it's essential to first establish a solid understanding of what the generational wealth gap actually entails. You might wonder, what precisely is this gap, and how did it become such a prominent feature of our economic reality? The generational wealth gap in the U.S. refers to the significant and growing disparity in net worth accumulated by different age cohorts, specifically comparing older generations to younger ones. Research from institutions like the Federal Reserve consistently highlights how median net worth dramatically increases with age, but recent data shows younger generations accumulating wealth at a much slower rate than their predecessors did at the same life stage. At its core, wealth includes not just income, but also assets like real estate, investments, and savings, minus liabilities, such as debts. For many, home equity represents the largest single component of their wealth. Therefore, disparities in home ownership rates and property appreciation directly translate into substantial differences in overall family wealth across generations. This forms a critical part of the broader wealth gap between generations in the U.S. When discussing wealth accumulation, it's important to consider various perspectives. Some argue that it's a natural progression for older generations to have more wealth, having had more time to save and invest. However, others point to specific economic shifts, such as stagnant wages, rising education costs, and, critically, soaring housing prices, as unique barriers faced by younger cohorts today. Imagine two families. One bought a home in 1980 for $50,000, and another attempts to buy a similar home today for $400,000. The first family benefited from decades of appreciation and lower entry costs, building substantial equity. The second faces significantly higher hurdles, needing larger down payments and carrying heavier mortgage burdens. This simple analogy highlights the compounding nature of housing wealth. Understanding these foundational concepts prepares us to dive deeper into how housing specifically acts as this hidden tax. We will explore how home ownership, or the lack thereof, impacts financial freedom, long-term savings, and the ability to pass on economic security to the next generation, revealing the mechanisms behind this silent economic burden. Home ownership has historically been the primary vehicle for wealth creation for the middle class in America, an assertion supported by countless economic studies. When you own a home, you're not just paying for shelter, You are investing in an asset that typically appreciates over time, building equity. This equity can be leveraged for other investments, used for retirement, or passed down through inheritance. Consider the data. Homeowners generally have a net worth significantly higher than renters. For example, the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances frequently shows that homeowners' median net worth is many times that of renters. This isn't solely because homeowners earn more, it's also because their principal asset, their home, grows in value, creating a substantial store of wealth. However, the ability to purchase a home varies significantly across generations. Younger generations face much higher housing costs relative to their income compared to previous generations. This means they need larger down payments, accrue more debt, or are simply priced out of the market entirely, limiting their access to this crucial wealth-building mechanism. The limitations of this wealth-building model become apparent when you consider those who cannot afford to enter the housing market. Renters, while enjoying flexibility, pay monthly expenses that do not build equity. This effectively means they are paying a tax, their housing cost, without gaining a corresponding asset that appreciates. This is the hidden tax we refer to, the opportunity cost of not building equity. This disparity in homeownership directly contributes to the expansion of the wealth gap between generations in the U.S. Now, let's explore the specific policies and market forces that have exacerbated this situation, making it increasingly difficult for younger individuals to access the wealth-building benefits of housing. Several policy decisions and evolving market dynamics have profoundly shaped the current housing landscape, creating an uneven playing field. Historically, government initiatives like the GI Bill and specific tax incentives made homeownership more accessible for post-WW2 generations, fostering rapid wealth accumulation. These programs lowered barriers to entry, providing a significant head start. In contrast, recent decades have seen less emphasis on direct first-time homebuyer assistance programs commensurate with market growth, while zoning laws in many desirable areas have become increasingly restrictive. These restrictions limit new housing supply, particularly affordable options, driving up prices in existing markets. This lack of supply relative to demand creates an upward pressure on home values. Furthermore, the rise of institutional investors in the housing market, purchasing properties to rent out rather than sell to individuals, has also contributed to scarcity and increased prices. When large corporations compete with first-time homebuyers for starter homes, the individual buyer is often at a significant disadvantage, unable to match cash offers or aggressive bidding strategies. You might also consider the impact of low interest rates over recent years. While seemingly beneficial, low rates also fuel higher home prices because borrowing becomes cheaper, increasing purchasing power and demand. For those already homeowners, it meant cheaper mortgages, but for aspiring buyers, it often meant facing even higher sticker prices for properties. These interconnected factors, historical policies, restrictive zoning, institutional investment, and interest rate environments, have created a complex web that favors existing homeowners and penalizes new entrants. As we continue, we will examine the direct financial implications of these dynamics for different generations, understanding how this impacts their present and future financial well-being. For older generations, especially baby boomers and some Gen X, the consistent appreciation of housing values over decades has provided a substantial financial cushion. Many purchased homes at significantly lower prices relative to their income and have seen their property values soar, enabling them to retire more comfortably, use equity for other investments, or even pass on substantial inheritances. Conversely, younger generations like millennials and Gen Z face an entirely different economic reality. They enter a housing market where prices are often decoupled from local incomes, requiring larger down payments and incurring massive mortgage debt that extends well into their working lives. This directly limits their ability to save for retirement or invest in other wealth-building assets. The impact of this disparity is profound. Imagine having a significant portion of your income dedicated to rent or an expensive mortgage, leaving little room for discretionary spending or saving. This situation forces difficult trade-offs, often delaying major life milestones such as starting a family or pursuing further education, which are themselves investments in human capital. Moreover, the absence of home equity means a lack of collateral for loans that could fund entrepreneurial ventures or cover emergencies, perpetuating a cycle of financial vulnerability. This hidden tax means that a larger percentage of their lifetime earnings must be allocated to housing without generating appreciating assets, effectively siphoning off potential wealth. This direct financial strain isn't just an individual struggle. It has broader economic consequences. Let's delve into how this housing burden contributes to increasing socioeconomic inequality and what this means for the overall health of our communities and economy. The inability of younger generations to access affordable housing and build equity exacerbates socioeconomic inequality on a much wider scale. When wealth accumulation through housing is concentrated in older demographics, it creates a less dynamic economy where new capital formation is hindered. This results in fewer opportunities for intergenerational upward mobility for many families. This phenomenon is evident in the expanding wealth gap between generations in the U.S., where home ownership is a major differentiator. Communities with high home ownership rates often exhibit greater stability, civic engagement, and local investment, as residents have a vested interest in the area's long-term health. Conversely, areas with high rental populations can sometimes experience less stability. Furthermore, the hidden tax on housing affects local economies. When a significant portion of younger workers' income is consumed by rent or mortgage payments, their disposable income for local businesses, services, and entertainment decreases. This can slow economic growth within communities, impacting small businesses and reducing the overall vibrancy of the local market. Consider the ripple effect. If young professionals cannot afford to live in the cities where jobs are abundant, they either commute long distances, contributing to environmental and social costs, or move to less opportunity-rich areas. This geographic mismatch of talent and opportunity stunts economic development and can lead to a brain drain in high-cost regions. Understanding these broader societal implications is crucial. This isn't merely an individual problem. It's a systemic challenge impacting the fabric of our society. Next, we will explore the concept of intergenerational wealth transfer and how housing plays a pivotal role in either perpetuating or mitigating these disparities. Intergenerational wealth transfer refers to the assets, financial or otherwise, that are passed down from one generation to the next, significantly influencing economic outcomes. Housing, being often the largest asset for many families, plays an enormous role in this process. A down payment gift, an inherited home, or even an early inheritance can provide a critical boost. For generations that benefited from accessible home ownership and significant appreciation, the option to provide financial assistance for their children as down payments or leave behind a substantial asset like a home is a powerful lever. This effectively provides a head start, circumventing many of the affordability barriers that other young people without such support face. Conversely, for those whose families did not accumulate significant housing wealth or who faced systemic barriers to home ownership themselves, this crucial advantage is absent. They must build wealth from scratch, often contending with high rents and student loan debt, without the aid of inherited equity. This creates a clear divide in starting points for wealth accumulation. This dynamic directly contributes to the expansion of the wealth gap between generations in the U.S. The ability to give or receive the bank of mom and dad for a home purchase, while seemingly benign, is a major factor in who can enter the housing market and begin building equity. It acts as a gatekeeper for future financial security. It becomes clear that housing is not just shelter. It's a profound mechanism for passing on economic opportunity or continuing cycles of disadvantage. Before we discuss potential solutions, if you're finding this analysis helpful and want to understand more about personal finance and economic trends, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Your support helps us create more in-depth content like this. Up next, we'll delve into the role of financial literacy and planning in navigating these challenges. Navigating the complexities of the housing market and the broader wealth gap requires a robust understanding of personal finance. Financial literacy empowers individuals to make informed decisions about saving, investing, debt management, and, crucially, understanding the long-term implications of housing choices. This knowledge can help mitigate some of the hidden tax effects. While systemic issues require systemic solutions, individual financial planning can make a tangible difference. For example, understanding the power of compound interest, the benefits of diverse investment portfolios, or strategies for debt reduction can help individuals build wealth, even if homeownership seems distant. It's about optimizing what's within your control. One key aspect of planning in this environment is realistic goal setting. For many, homeownership may require a longer savings period or looking at different geographic markets than originally envisioned. Exploring alternatives like real estate investment trusts, IREITs, or other accessible investment vehicles can also allow participation in real estate appreciation without direct home purchase. However, it's vital to acknowledge that financial literacy alone cannot solve the generational wealth gap or overcome all housing market barriers. It provides tools and strategies, but it doesn't change fundamental economic realities or systemic inequities. It's a necessary but not sufficient component of navigating these challenges. Even with the best financial planning, the headwinds can be substantial. So, while you can equip yourself with knowledge and smart strategies, what broader collective actions might be necessary to address the root causes of this hidden tax and foster greater equity across generations? Let's explore potential policy interventions and proposed market reforms next. Addressing the generational wealth gap, particularly its housing component, necessitates a multifaceted approach involving significant policy interventions. One primary area is zoning reform. Relaxing restrictive single-family zoning laws in high-demand areas could encourage the construction of more diverse housing types, including multifamily units and smaller homes, increasing overall supply. Another critical intervention involves strengthening and expanding first-time homebuyer assistance programs. These could include down payment assistance, lower interest rate mortgages, or shared equity schemes that reduce the initial burden of home purchase. Such programs could help level the playing field, making home ownership attainable for more young families. Furthermore, policies aimed at curbing speculative real estate investment by large corporations could help stabilize markets. This might involve taxing property speculation, limiting corporate ownership of single-family homes, or prioritizing individual buyers in certain market segments. The goal is to ensure housing serves primarily as shelter and wealth building for residents, not just a profit vehicle. Additionally, investing in affordable housing infrastructure, including public housing initiatives and subsidies for low-income housing development, is crucial. This helps ensure that even those who cannot afford market-rate housing have safe and stable options, freeing up income that could eventually be saved towards other financial goals. Implementing such policies requires political will and a broad societal consensus. These are complex changes that would impact various stakeholders, but their potential to rebalance the housing market and narrow the wealth gap between generations in the U.S. is substantial. Next, we will consider the societal benefits of closing this gap and what a more equitable future could look like. Closing the generational wealth gap through more equitable housing policies would yield profound societal benefits, far beyond individual financial gains. A society where more people can build wealth through home ownership is generally more stable, prosperous, and resilient. It reduces economic anxiety and fosters greater social cohesion across different age groups. When younger generations have access to affordable housing, they are more likely to achieve financial independence earlier. This translates into greater economic participation, higher rates of entrepreneurship, and increased consumer spending on goods and services, ultimately stimulating broader economic growth and job creation throughout local communities and the nation. Furthermore, a reduction in housing-related financial strain can improve public health outcomes. Stress associated with precarious housing situations contributes to mental and physical health issues. Providing secure, affordable housing can alleviate this burden, leading to healthier, more productive individuals who can contribute more meaningfully to society. This approach also strengthens the intergenerational compact. When younger generations feel they have a fair shot at financial stability and wealth creation, they are more likely to trust in economic systems and governmental institutions. It creates a sense of shared prosperity and opportunity, rather than fostering resentment over perceived inequities between age cohorts. A more equitable distribution of wealth, facilitated by fair housing access, creates a virtuous cycle. It ensures that the hidden tax on housing does not disproportionately burden specific generations, allowing for a healthier, more dynamic economy where everyone has a chance to thrive. Let's now consider the importance of long-term vision in tackling this complex issue. Addressing the generational wealth gap and the hidden tax of housing is not a short-term fix. It requires a sustained, long-term vision. The issues contributing to this gap have evolved over decades, and reversing these trends will similarly take time, commitment, and consistent effort across multiple policy cycles. Instant solutions are unrealistic and often ineffective. This long-term perspective means implementing policies that are designed to endure beyond a single political term. For example, zoning reforms need consistent application, and first-time homebuyer programs require stable funding. Building sustainable, affordable housing infrastructure is an ongoing process that demands continuous investment and strategic planning. It also means shifting societal attitudes and expectations. Recognizing that housing is both a market commodity and a fundamental human need is crucial. A balanced approach that allows for responsible investment while safeguarding affordability and access for all requires public understanding and support for these long-term policy goals. Consider the potential for compounding benefits. Just as housing appreciation built wealth over decades for older generations, sustained efforts to make housing more accessible for younger generations could lead to similar long-term gains in their wealth accumulation. This requires patience and a commitment to intergenerational equity. Without a long-term strategy, interventions might be piecemeal, achieving only temporary relief rather than fundamental change. As we move towards actionable insights, it's vital to remember that individual actions, combined with collective advocacy for these long-term policy shifts, are both essential for a truly impactful change. While systemic change is crucial, individuals can also take proactive steps to navigate the existing housing market challenges and build personal wealth. One key insight is to prioritize saving for a down payment as early as possible. Even small, consistent contributions can accumulate significantly over time, reducing the amount you need to borrow and the burden of future mortgage payments. Diversifying your investment portfolio beyond traditional savings accounts is another critical strategy. Consider low-cost index funds or ETFs that can offer higher returns over the long term, helping your money grow faster than inflation. Even if homeownership is a distant goal, building an investment portfolio can provide an alternative path to wealth accumulation. Educating yourself continually on personal finance and real estate market trends is invaluable. Understanding mortgage options, interest rates, property taxes, and local market dynamics will empower you to make smarter decisions when the time comes to buy. Knowledge is your most powerful tool in mitigating the effects of the hidden tax. Furthermore, exploring alternative housing options or locations could be a realistic approach. Perhaps a smaller home, a duplex, or a less conventional property type could offer an entry point into home ownership. Being flexible about location, especially in areas with lower costs of living, might also present opportunities that were previously overlooked. Remember, every step taken to increase your financial literacy and implement sound saving and investment strategies brings you closer to your goals. These individual efforts, when combined with broader systemic changes, become even more powerful. Next, let's consider the collective actions and advocacy needed to drive meaningful policy reform. Individual actions, though important, must be complemented by collective action and advocacy to truly address the generational wealth gap caused by housing. Engaging with local and national policymakers is crucial. You can support organizations that champion affordable housing initiatives, advocate for zoning reforms, and push for stronger first-time homebuyer programs. Voice your concerns about the housing crisis and its impact on younger generations to your elected officials. Participate in public forums, write letters, or sign petitions. Your collective voice can put pressure on legislators to prioritize housing affordability and equitable wealth distribution as key policy objectives. This is how systemic change begins. Support candidates who propose comprehensive solutions for housing affordability, supply expansion, and fair market practices. Research their stances on issues like rent control, property tax reform, and assistance for low-income buyers. Informed voting is a powerful tool for driving the policy changes necessary to address this hidden tax. Joining or forming community groups focused on housing advocacy can amplify your impact. These groups often organize at the local level to push for specific changes, such as preventing predatory real estate practices or campaigning for new affordable housing developments. Collective effort creates momentum and makes a significant difference. Remember that addressing the wealth gap between generations in the U.S. requires sustained, coordinated effort from many stakeholders. It is a societal challenge that demands a societal response. Let's now explore some legitimate resources and tools that can aid both individual and collective efforts in this journey. To further your understanding and aid your journey, several legitimate resources are available. For financial literacy, reputable organizations like the National Endowment for Financial Education, NEFE, offer free educational materials. Websites like Investopedia provide clear explanations of complex financial terms and concepts, empowering your individual efforts. When considering homeownership, government agencies such as the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, provide extensive information on assistance programs, counseling services, and fair housing rights. Nonprofit housing counseling agencies, often HUD-approved, can offer personalized guidance on budgeting, credit repair, and the home buying process. For those interested in advocating for change, organizations like the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and local housing justice groups offer opportunities to get involved. Their websites often provide policy briefs, research data, and ways to contact your representatives regarding housing issues. These sources are invaluable for collective action. Academic research institutions and think tanks, such as the Federal Reserve and the Brookings Institution, frequently publish detailed studies on the generational wealth gap and housing economics. Consulting these primary sources ensures you are basing your understanding on verified, factual information, avoiding misinformation or sensationalism. These resources are designed to equip you with accurate information and actionable pathways, whether you are planning your personal finances or engaging in broader advocacy. Utilizing them effectively will strengthen both your individual financial standing and the collective movement for a more equitable housing future. Implementing the knowledge gained means first honestly assessing your personal financial situation and setting realistic, measurable goals related to saving, debt reduction, and investment. Begin by creating a detailed budget, identifying areas where you can optimize spending, and then automate your savings to ensure consistent progress toward your financial objectives. Next, actively seek out and utilize the resources mentioned, whether it's for financial education, homebuyer assistance, or advocacy. Engage with housing counselors, read reliable financial news, and understand local housing market trends. Knowledge without application remains merely information. The power lies in putting it into practice. Be realistic about results and timelines. Addressing a challenge as significant as the wealth gap between generations in the U.S., particularly its housing component, takes time and sustained effort. Individual wealth building is a marathon, not a sprint, and systemic change requires persistent advocacy. Celebrate small victories, but maintain a long-term perspective. We invite you to share your experiences, questions, and insights in the comments below. Your perspective enriches this conversation and helps others navigate similar challenges. What strategies have worked for you, or what policy changes do you believe are most impactful? Authentic engagement fosters a stronger community around these vital issues. Ultimately, understanding the generational wealth gap. Housing's hidden tax empowers you to make more informed decisions, advocate for a fairer system, and contribute to a more equitable future. By recognizing housing as both a personal asset and a powerful driver of economic disparity, you gain crucial insight into building a more stable and prosperous society for all.